Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm WCRD Chief Weather Forecaster Alex March. Here now we're going to talk about Hurricane Irene. We don't spend a whole lot of time talking about the tropics, but as I'm sure you know right now, there's a very large storm currently in the Atlantic, and it will be affecting a great deal of people here over the next few days. Let's go ahead and talk about Hurricane Irene. As I'm sure you know, I'm going to switch over sources so you can see exactly what we're talking about here. You can see it here in the Atlantic. It is currently a Category 2 storm with winds right around 100 miles an hour. And you can see that barometric pressure is low. It's right around 950 millibars. And millibars, of course, is a scientific unit of measure. And if you don't like that, well, 28.06 inches of mercury. Now, for comparison, on a normal day here on WCRD News at 5, we will talk about barometric pressure being at, say, 29.95 inches of mercury. That's a pretty sunny day, so you can see just how much lower that barometric pressure is. Now, in hurricane standards, 950 millibars is not that low. We've seen hurricanes down into the 800 millibar range, so it's not a very deep Hurricane Irene, but it's certainly a very large one, as you can see again from this map. Let me remove some of this information. You can see just how large it is. About 400 miles across. It was earlier, and we can check that right now just to see how much it is. So you take a look here. It's about 600 miles across right now, just off the coast, the east coast here, off the coast of South Carolina. North Carolina is being hit pretty good right now, as you can see. This is Cardinal Scan radar. We're taking a look at this. The eye is just off towards the south here. So I move this a little farther north, you can see the eye right here. North Carolina is being hit with a pretty good amount of rain and thunderstorms right now. You see this small, or this thin box here, this red box. It's actually a large box, but it's thin. That is a tornado watch, in effect, for the eastern coast of North Carolina. You can see these other boxes in here. These are new. These are actually tornado warnings. And so right around Jacksonville, North Carolina is where they're seeing it. Up towards the north of that, over towards the east, they're seeing it near Plymouth, North Carolina, near Swan Quarter, North Carolina. The Outer Banks are taking a pretty punch from this as well. In fact, there may be some fairly significant damage there in the Outer Banks, so that is, I certainly hope there's nobody there right now, because they're really getting hammered by it right now. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some other information here, and we are going to actually look right here at what's called the spaghetti plot. Now, the spaghetti plot is really just a lot of computer models. There are a number of computer models that output a possible solution for what hurricanes might do. And so spaghetti plots, will put them all together on one map so we can see what each model is thinking. You can see they're pretty closely in agreement here when the eye is moving over eastern North Carolina, over the Outer Banks region, and you can see that exactly right here. Then they start getting in a little more disagreement, but if you notice, we're still getting really close to some big cities. Here's Washington, D.C., of course, the nation's capital. Looks like Washington's going to get hit. Philadelphia, another big city, they're going to get hit as well. Continues off towards the north. New York City, right here, they're going to get hit pretty hard. Continuing off towards the north, Boston is going to get it, and it's going to continue off, of course, into Maine and then even into Canada. Now, one thing for Boston here, you see, most of the computer models are showing that the eye is going to be towards the west of Boston. Now, that's actually some bad news for Boston, because what happens in a hurricane is the right front quadrant, that is the quadrant that is towards the direction of motion, that is where you're going to see the most destructive winds and the worst part of the hurricane. And that looks like exactly where Boston is. I'll switch back to this so you can see exactly what I mean here. You can see the models here indicating where the eye will be, and then Boston right off towards the east of that, right into the right front quadrant. As we go back down towards the south, we were talking about the Outer Banks a moment ago. They're in that right front quadrant area as well. So like I said, they're going to be hit pretty hard, and that is very much looking to be the case. Now, it is interesting to see what all these computer models are saying, but let's go and take a look at the official forecast. This comes from the National Hurricane Center, and that is their job. They go through and they forecast where these hurricanes are going to be and what kind of strength. So as we move through the next 3 days, we'll say, you can see just where the hurricane is forecast to go. And even as you notice too, it is in pretty close agreement to what the models were saying. The National Hurricane Center believes that the eye of the hurricane is going to go on the eastern portion of North Carolina, just brushing Washington, D.C., right around, let's see, 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. Now, they're not going to be hit with the worst part of it. They're just going to get a lot of rain. And then as we continue up towards the north, again, Philadelphia is going to get a lot of rain as well. But if you look here, it looks like New York City, right here, is going to get the eye passing pretty much right overhead. Now, if you think about it, a lot of people have actually asked me, it's pretty unusual to have these hurricanes that far north, isn't it? And it really isn't. It's not common for the hurricanes to go that far north, but it's not uncommon either. In fact, if you look at statistics, New York City is actually overdue for taking a direct hit on a hurricane, and it's unfortunate to say it, but this may actually be their time to get a direct hit. Okay, back to the map now, and you can see that looks like Boston is going to be, like I said, right in that right front quadrant area, and then the hurricane is going to continue up through Maine and then back into Canada. When you zoom out, you can see the official track of this, and you will notice too that it is affecting a great deal of people. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment, but if that wasn't bad enough, well, we've actually got something else brewing in the tropics. If I can bring that up here, you'll notice Tropical Depression 10 here just off the coast of Africa, and it is just starting to get its act together here. You can see it. We're not exactly sure what it's going to be doing yet. There's still plenty of time. It's still why it's a tropical depression. But we certainly hope that it doesn't make its way towards the U.S. So we certainly don't need another hurricane right on the heels of Irene. Okay, so we talked about those big cities that are being hit. And if you think about it, most of the people in the country live over on the East Coast. That is why the storm is such a big deal. It's because it's going to be impacting tens of millions of people. And of course, that's where most of our money is too. If you think about New York City, it's one of the financial capitals of the country, if not the world. And if it has to take a direct hit, there's certainly going to be a lot of problems there. In fact, we're talking about flooding in New York City. Much of the Northeast has already seen lots of rain over the last few months, and they certainly don't need any more. In fact, some areas of the Northeast need only a half to maybe an inch of rain to cause massive flooding, and most of the areas in the Northeast will be experiencing about a foot of rain. So again, it will be causing some pretty big problems there. Now in New York, the subway system there looks like it could be flooded, and in fact it's going to be shut down at noon on Saturday. And it looks like other parts like the islands of New York could become separated from the mainland of New York. If the hurricane winds become strong enough, then the bridges will have to be shut down. So they may be isolated for several days until cleanup takes place. And so that is why we are covering this right now, is because there are so many people that are involved in this, and there are so many people, so much money that could be lost as well. There could be about a $10 billion loss, that is with a B, $10 billion loss just from this hurricane. And you will probably notice too, even here in Muncie, if you go out and you buy gas prices have actually gone up about 20 cents in the last probably 24 hours or so here as Hurricane Irene has made its way closer to the U.S. So we are feeling its impact here, even in the Midwest as well. While we won't directly feel Irene's impact on the weather, we will be indirectly feeling it. And we'll go back to the map and we'll talk more about what that means. See, what happens is when we get hurricanes that come off the east coast, anything that is behind it that is off towards the west gets backed up, since it can't push towards the east anymore because Irene is blocking its path. So what ends up happening is we currently have high pressure basically right over the top of us, and it has gotten stuck, and it's going to sit there for some time until Irene can get out of here. And so that's exactly why we're going to be looking at sunshine for the next few days. And it looks like temperatures right into the lower 80s. It's going to be really nice out there. And so again, you can find our current forecast on our website, WCRD.net, of course. And looks like it's going to be a really nice next few days, really nice weekend. As I work to bring that up for you here. You can see that here on our website, just how nice it's going to be. Again, lots of sunshine with temperatures into the low 80s, and it looks like even upper 70s. We may not even make it to 80 degrees, so that will be pretty nice. And as we continue to look back on the East Coast and Hurricane Irene, just wanted to get you updated on some of the warnings that we're looking at too. Again, these orange colors here, those are all the hurricane warnings, and so those are the areas that really need to look out for some pretty bad weather. This purple color in here, that is a hurricane watch, as they work to really try to nail down the forecast a little better and decide whether those areas are going to be hit, and whether they will be hit with the tropical storm force winds or the hurricane force winds. This green area up here into Maine, that is tropical storm warning, and so even up into Maine they're feeling the impact of this as well. Lots of evacuations planned in New York. In fact, in New York, the first mandatory evacuation in the city's history. And so again, this is becoming a pretty big deal. So that is it for now, and I'm going to leave you now with a loop from one of our satellite feeds that we have up in space, and it is of Hurricane Irene growing from a tropical wave through tropical depression, storm, and then of course into Hurricane Irene over the last 3 to 4 days. You'll see that here in about 14 seconds. Thanks for joining me here. Again, I'm Chief Weather Forecaster Alex March. For our latest forecast anytime, log on to WCRD.net. Of course, follow WCRDWX on Twitter.